Learning to manage and support children and young people who demonstrate challenging behaviours can be a really difficult thing to do. In order to do this well, we need to have a deeper understanding of emotions and feelings and how they can influence behaviour. In this session, we'll be focusing upon anger and aggression. Anger is a normal emotion and feeling we experience when things do not go to plan. Often, when we are frustrated, disappointed, and feel inadequate, we can become irritable and angry. We often want to resist anger and want others to cease being angry and upset, and this can cause greater distress for the individual. So to begin, what are some of the influences upon children and young people's behaviour? It can be biological. The individual may have an illness or mental health concern. The young person may have a physical concern. They may have a physical disability, acute illness, or chronic illness. Often physical health conditions can cause distress and concern for children and young people. Reduced physical ability is often very frustrating when trying to keep up with your peers. Psychological. Developing coping skills takes time. Psychological disorder may impair coping skill development. Behavioural. Learned. Some circumstances create a learned and practiced way of getting needs met that does not fit with social norms. Social home or community environment. Unusual stresses in this space can cause sensitivity to distress. Cultural, family values and beliefs. Different families have different levels of tolerance around anger and aggression. Student group dynamics. Sometimes one young person's behaviour can quickly affect another young person's behaviour. Classroom environment. Physical environment can impact on a young person's ability to cope. For example, is it noisy, crowded or dark? Classroom organisation, routines, materials. Young people are better able to cope with new circumstances when the daily environment is predictable. Teacher behaviours, reinforcement, rewards and consequences. Children and young people will respond differently and uniquely to various motivators to change. Developing skills to work with students who express distress while managing complex behavioural concerns. Exploring triggers for the individual student. Rarely there is a single cause of a challenging behaviour, which is important for us to keep in our minds. More often the behaviour is driven by a perfect storm of circumstances, and the storm can be a different set of circumstances for each individual child or young person. So, what can be the triggers for children and young people? We must remember what a trigger is. Triggers, or actions or events that prompt particular behaviours. Triggers are often used by teachers to elicit correct student behaviour in the classroom. Certain word or signals for quiet time or focus on me. When a young person is upset or reacts to one of these triggers, we often see a response, which is challenging behaviour. These challenging behaviours might be induced by sudden loud noises in or out of the classroom, seeing someone that they're afraid of, previous negative experience being asked to do something they're not yet capable of or even want to do. We also must acknowledge and remember that as children and adolescents grow, their behaviours are strongly influenced by their stage of development. Their physical, emotional thoughts, as well as their thinking patterns, are developing and will influence their responses. As they grow and develop, young people particularly will seek independence from their family of origin and engage with their peers. Often these transitions can be challenges for children and young people and can be a cause of conflict for families and even for educators at school. What is important is that we see children and young people in their stages of development, which will influence and impact the changes they will experience. There are many factors that can contribute to anger issues and defiance in children and teens. Every child and adolescent's emotional regulation skill set, capacity, and maturity is different. Some students simply need more help in learning how to healthily manage their emotions and cope with stress. Other young people experience intense anger as a symptom of a mental health issue, traumatizing life experience, or simply from the stress and pressures of adolescence. Anger is a secondary emotion. It allows us to save face at a difficult time and attempt to take control of something out of our control. It can be an expression of fear, sadness, or confusion. It helps us make decisions under stress. It is very common for children and young people to deflect feelings of incompetence, compared to their peers, with blame on others. The underlying emotion is fear of failure. It is very common for children and young people to hide fear in confusion with anger. If we are able to support young people with assisting them to discern what the emotion they are feeling and seeking to support them to manage when they feel distressed, they will build ongoing resilience and capacity. Exploring how education staff can work effectively with students who have challenging behaviours. Acknowledge the anger first. I can see that you're angry. Please tell me what happened just now so that we can figure this out. Take a deep breath for a second so you can tell me about it. Anger is most easily sustained when challenged directly. Anger is harder to sustain when you reach an agreement or partnership. Ask. Rarely can a distressed person answer why. Better to ask what happened and what happened before that. Listen for a trigger. Boundaries can give a person an immediate sense of safety because someone has control. I want to know what is going on for you, but you are not leaving this room. Choices immediately give a person a sense of renewed control. Where it is safe, offer choices early. For example, you can sit or stand, but you must stay in the room. Reinforce the choice by repeating it. Do you want to sit or stand? Would you like a drink of water? Do you want to talk to me or him? Show compassion and empathy. When you feel distressed, an answer with compassion and kindness can help diffuse the anger. Validating the feelings of anger and ongoing concern through any conversation is really helpful and assists in building relationship. Obtain support for yourself if you feel as though you are struggling to support children and young people with ongoing trauma and distress. At times, our own vulnerabilities can be impacted by the support we provide, and you may need ongoing care and supervision to maintain your own health and well-being. Case study, Challenging Behaviours. Case study 1, Mental Health. Luke is a 13-year-old young man. He's been diagnosed with oppositional defiance disorder and attention deficit hyperactive disorder and is known to school. Due to his primary school flagging, he would be a student who would need support transitioning to Year 7. Luke has a history of absconding from the school grounds when he feels upset and distressed. Often, he will leave and be found at the local shops, sitting out the front. Luke is an average student and reports he has some friends. The group of peers like to play soccer on the oval, but there have been times when it's been reported as rough play. The year advisor suspects he and his friends smoke cannabis together and engage in underage drinking. Luke does not like class and often is found wandering after break times end. When asked if he can go to class, he reports, "I've lost my class and I don't know where I'm going." If he is asked questions in class by the teacher, he will refuse to answer and often pretends he does not hear the question. When the classroom teacher may press him for an answer, he very quickly becomes distressed, swearing and kicking chairs. He also threatens to end his life or harm others. The most recent incident was when Luke threatened to follow a teacher home and stab him and then stab himself. Luke refuses to accept referrals to mental health or any other service. He reports his mother has tried to get him counselling, but he does not want to go. Case study questions. What changes in behaviour have you noted? Absconding from school? What mental health symptoms is Luke displaying? Escalation in behaviour when asked questions in school, swearing and kicking chairs, threats to harm others when distressed. What are your next steps from a school perspective? What supports are in place for supporting Luke when he becomes distressed at school? Does a health and safety plan need to be actioned? Are there particular classes where Luke becomes distressed? What are the options for supporting class for Luke? What referrals or pathways would you consider? Referral to GP for ongoing care and support. Referral to community mental health teams. Challenging Behaviours Case Study 2, Intellectual Disability and Mental Health. Macy Lee is a 5-year-old girl who has recently enrolled in her local area school for kindergarten. She has a mild intellectual disability and is reported to have attention deficit hyperactive disorder. However, as a school, you have not yet been able to confirm this diagnosis. The school counsellor has contacted Mum, Leah, to follow up whether Macy Lee has a diagnosis of ADHD, as they have documentation to confirm this. Macy's mum has consented to the school counsellor to complete some testing. Macy Lee, prior to attending school, did attend early intervention. However, this was out of area and following up for the documentation has proved challenging. Since beginning school, Macy Lee cries every day and finds it almost impossible to leave her mother and sit with her peers. Once her mother leaves, which could take up to recess time, she still takes a very long time to settle. Any small difficulty that she may encounter during the day, Macy Lee begins to cry and needs time to calm. The classroom teacher has noticed the other students in the class often don't sit near her or involve her in play, and her reading and writing skills have not developed like her classmates. Macy Lee was overheard to say to her desk mate, "You need to write this for me because I'm your friend," which her desk mate agreed to do. When discussed with Mum, Leah, she just says, "We are best friends and she doesn't like not being without me." Mum reports she too struggled at school and stated, "I never liked it." Case study questions. What changes in behaviour have you noted? Ongoing crying and distress when mother leaves, asking other children to complete work for her. What mental health symptoms is Macy Lee displaying? Ongoing distress, long time to settle when distressed. What are your next steps from a school perspective? Follow up with mother for information about changes of behaviour at home. Discuss options for the Student Learning Support Officer in the classroom. Confirmation of diagnosis for Macy Lee. Possible NDIS referral. What referrals or pathways would you consider? Support from GP for exploration of referral pathways for specialised support.